Greetings. My name is Terri, and this is the Ground with Terri talk show, podcast, YouTube channel, however you want to frame that. And on this channel, I talk a lot about personal development, the outdoors, creativity, and entrepreneurship, and just like so much stuff, there's so much to cover. But today I'm following up on the last episode, which was about rock bottom. So if you've ever been at rock bottom, it's a good time to tune in. So last episode was kind of heavy. We talked about my personal experiences with rock bottom just lightly, and we talked about, some of the things that I've learned at rock bottom. But I want to go further into what I've learned, because the stories and the experiences are important, but it's more important to kind of like understand tools for this time period, like that time period, right? Because, I wouldn't, like I said in the other episode, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's not somewhere you necessarily want to make a habit of returning, but if you are there are some things that I have learned, and I can only speak for myself. So this is not necessarily universal rule or law. It's just what I've learned. So with all that being said, welcome. My name is Terri, and I'm excited to connect with you on the Wood Wide Web. So this episode, the title I had for this chat is learning to trust yourself and other people. And I think it's really important in a time of lack to tap into your resources internally. So like what I recommend for myself is just to kind of like think about wins that I've had, right? Think about the wins that I've had. Do some reframing. So when I think in the last episode, I talked a lot about job loss, because that's been like a theme. And, the wins are that I have this YouTube channel. I've been working on this for 6 years. That's a long time. Through many jobs, I've been consistent with making videos, and that's something I trust myself on, that I'm going to show up and I'm going to keep figuring this out, and I'm going to keep sharing, and I'm going to keep creating, because it makes me feel alive. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm using my creativity, and like trusting myself that I've made it through every single thing that's been challenging for me up until this point. I'm 34 years old, and every single challenge that's come at me, I've made it through. And it's not like I've made it through on my own. There's a big part of it is learning to ask for help and like trusting other people. I remember when I started a job in 2023, in December 2023. I left a job I'll just backtrack. I left a job in July 2023, and I went back to the corporate world December 2023. So I had about a 6-month period of just like, what is happening in my life? Why am I in this position again? And so when I went back in December, it took me a little while to trust my manager. It took me even longer to trust my coworkers after, some of the stuff that I've gone through, and that my boundaries have allowed to happen to me. It's not really about the other people. That's the other thing about rock bottom, is like understanding that like we're responsible. Like, if I'll speak for myself, like I'm responsible for every single thing that has transpired. And that, so just back to the topic, learning to trust people is huge And a big part of it is learning to trust yourself, learning to trust your boundaries with other people. Because in the work environment, in the work world, we kind of, what I notice is that from my perspective, people revert back to like hunter gatherer, and people are there for a paycheck. People are there for money. Duh. That's why we go to work, even if we're in work that is person centered. And so people become competitive, and that's not always a bad thing if it's healthy, but if it's unchecked and um, no one is kind of moderating how that's manifesting, like management or the person themselves, it can really spiral. And that's where we see things like backstabbing or gossip or sabotage. I mean, whoa, it happens. It happens. And so, but the beautiful thing is that for me, as I learned to trust people, it became easier to navigate. And part of it was trusting myself and learning how to tell my story in those settings in a way that didn't totally incriminate myself. I mean, it's just one of those things where I'm an open book. That's why I can have a YouTube channel, because I don't really have anything to hide. I am who I am. I say who I am. I do what I say I'm going to do. And I'm the same way online or offline. Like, do I have my times where I need to keep things to myself? Yes. Have I learned how to kind of have nuance and navigate social situations? Yes, I've had to. Because you can't just say it all to your manager. I mean, you can. I've definitely done it, and for me, it didn't always go well. But I've found ways to say it in a way that's professional, right? So I was able to share with my manager, just like, hey, I've had some really hard times with work since 2020, like, and I was vulnerable. But I didn't let my emotions sweep me away and start crying or something. And, even if that was to happen, I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that life is a journey, and however people go through things, right? It's okay. Like, I just want to say it's okay to go through some stuff, like everyone goes through it. And the self-judgment is such a part of deprogramming and learning to trust yourself again, where like if you are judging yourself, it takes away from that building of trust, right? Just like with another person, if I'm judging them, how am I going to build a relationship with them? How am I going to build a relationship with myself if I'm just judging myself? So I've said a lot about the topic. I would love any questions or comments about this, because, this is new for the channel. The channel has been a work in progress, but I'm really getting organized. I have like the next 20 episodes titled, because I'm getting really organized with how I'm doing things here on Ground with Terri. And I think, just to wrap up and kind of like recap, healing from rock bottom, getting out of rock bottom, building a foundation, learning to trust ourselves and learning to trust other people. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean every connection is going to be real, raw, and authentic down to the bone. It just means that for me, it's like trusting myself enough to be vulnerable with people, because I know I got me. I know I got me. And that's not from a place of ego. That's from a place of, I can look at the data, and the data suggests that to be resilient in this world, to be someone who continues to show up, your life will show that. And Like, the results we get in the physical world show us about our internal. Not always. Not always. But if you keep showing up, you will get through it. And again, this is all just my personal beliefs, opinions, and experiences. I wish you well, and I'll see you on a future episode, okay?